Hey everyone, welcome back, and welcome if you're here for the first time to Rich in Wellness. I'm Roddia Paul.
And I am Shola Cargill. We are so glad to see you all. Well, we're so glad that you're here seeing us. So today we're going to be talking about purpose. Now, thinking back to our previous series and what we've been talking about and what we've been creating is this wellness plan, these self care plans that are personalized and optimized for our health and our wellness. So, to go along with that, we're kind of going to get a little bit deeper in terms of defining what is purpose and what that may look like for some of us. So, very basic, very simple. What is purpose? Purpose is the reason why. It is your reason for doing. It is that drive for doing. Thinking about the purpose of you coming here today to watch this wellness video. What was the reason behind you coming? Was it for your wellness? Was it to kill time? There's always a purpose behind something. And then there's a deeper purpose and a purpose that's more in alignment with our soul and who we are at the core. So, can you say a little bit more about what that is and why that's even important, Rodia?
Of course. So, like, kind of bridging off what you just said. So, there are two types of purpose, right? One's about like being intentional of what you're doing. So, like, one, there's a purpose of clicking onto this video today. You were looking for something. I'm hoping that you find it today. Um, and then two, there's a purpose of life, or multiple, which we'll talk about later. But they're important because they're really what help guide us throughout life, right? There are several things, and there may be more, but I'm just going to list a few things that understanding what your purpose is and why you should do things with purpose, what that does for you as a human being, right? So, for one, it helps you to make meaning of yourself, right? When you understand why you're here or the reasons why you're here, it helps you to understand who you are, and it also helps you to understand the world around you. I think when you have purpose, you look at things differently, right? You want to engage differently with the people, with the networks, wanting to connect to others to help you, further push that purpose. It creates meaning, which forces you to connect, right? It gives you direction. You
Mm.
can't go anywhere if you don't know where you need to be, right? If you have no idea where you're supposed to go, you're not going to have any direction, any sense of self, any idea of, what steps you should be taking. So having an understanding of your purpose is the number one way to feel like you have a direction, right? It's empowering to be able to say, like, I know I'm here for this and I'm doing what I'm here for. That's probably the most empowering thing I've ever experienced, right? And on top of that, feeling empowered does what? Like we talked about last time, it gives you intrinsic motivation, y'all. Like when you know why you're here, and you know you're doing what you're called to do, it can motivate you, when you have nothing else, no external things encouraging you to keep going, right? And the other thing that it helps you do, it helps you to find discovery, right? So we're not just born and we stay who we were as a baby for the rest of our life, right? We grow, we change, we learn, we develop. And a part of that is understanding your purpose, gaining new purpose. Because sometimes you may think something is your purpose now, and it was for that period of time. And then something new comes, and you're like, oh, this too. I just learned something new about myself that I enjoy, that I'm passionate about, that I'm good at. Like that forces you to rediscover things about yourself, right? It makes you feel happy, at least for me. Probably Shola too would agree with this. It's so fulfilling, and it makes you feel so happy when you're doing something with purpose and you're feeling fulfilled. And the last thing that it does is kind of what we've been saying is all of our wellness is interconnected, right? So emotionally feeling well because you feel filled with purpose is also a great way to encourage your physical health. Like studies show people that feel like they have purpose, like they have meaning in life, they have less physical disorders and challenges. So, all of those things, right? All of those things are things that you can gain from understanding what your reason is, like what your why is, right? So, show. Can you like give us some more information about, why we're talking about purpose and the different types of purpose? Of course, it's a verb and a noun, but how is that possible? Like, make it make sense.
Right, right. And I mean, a lot of what you explained, Rodia, was really showing that those differences, right? That motivation for doing and then going into that reason for doing. So, thinking about it again, very simplistically, you have the verb of doing things with purpose, and then you have the noun of what is my purpose and what is my purpose in this season, like you mentioned, because it may change, it may not stay the same. And so just thinking about that distinction and being able to piece apart, okay, well, what am I doing? What is my reason why? Can then fuel you to do. It can then give you that motivation and that courage and that confidence to do what is required to fulfill that purpose. So it's interconnected, but still very important to piece apart. Because let's say, for instance, you're just doing, and you don't know why you're doing. At some point, like you said, you're going to end up not having any direction. Where is the end? If you don't know where you're going, then how do you know when you've gotten there? Right? So I mean, it's it's being able to define all of that, and whether or not we understand what our purpose is at every moment, taking the time to reflect and to think about it and to get closer to it is really what's going to help us move forward in this journey. So just a brief example from my personal life. I have many siblings, all boys, brothers, right? And so thinking about, why am I the only girl? What is the reason behind me being the eldest girl with all of these boys? What is my purpose in that relationship? And just very simple, right? It's for me to be their older sister and to guide them in their journeys. That is my purpose in their life. And so, in defining that purpose and connecting it with my role, I'm then able to do things with purpose that can get them to where they're going. Right. So, what about you, Rodia? Can you give us an example of purpose and what you do purposefully?
I think, yeah, I definitely, I'm so glad that you made that distinction because I knew that, but I don't think I was being intentional about distinguishing, the verb from the noun and what that may look like in my own life. And so I'm thinking right now of, me being a first generation college grad and like what the purpose of that is and what I do with that purpose, right? So going in, when I was an undergrad, I don't think I thought about it as much. It was a big accomplishment, but now that I'm in grad school and I'm being a first gen all over again, I'm really starting to realize like the purpose of this is one, to create new generational cycles in my family, right? So of education, of financial literacy, of community, of destigmatizing mental health, being from the islands, there's a whole big stigma on what that is and if it's a real thing, et cetera, et cetera. So of course that being the purposes I can bring back, like I'm obtaining all this information, I'm doing all this new stuff, like that's the actual noun, right? But the verb is when I take what I learn and I'm bringing it back to my family, right? And I'm empowering my family through what I'm learning, right? So I'm teaching my mom things and I'm having conversation with my grandparents. And, so I'm definitely seeing now, like, it's important to understand that, right? Because I think it helps us see our purpose in action. And then that circles back to us feeling well, right? So it's one thing to know my purpose is I'm an artist. But if you never create any art, if you never turn that into a verb, it doesn't feel the same. It's not the same thing. So like I'm so glad that you said that. And I hope like you guys watching are starting to shift your thinking on that and wonder for yourself, like what is what is the noun of my purpose look like and how can I put that into action? How can I express that, right? Because I think all of those two things together is what helps us feel well, right? So that's what I was thinking about. But Shola, can you tell them? Of course, we kind of already did, but like, what is the homework, for this activity that we just talked about?
Right, right. I mean, the homework is defining that, making those distinctions. What is your purpose? Right? Just, I mean, as you're just sitting here watching us, what's coming up for you? What's coming up? Is there question marks? Is it confusion? Do you know for sure? Are you certain? Write about it, journal about it. We talk about the benefits of journaling, being able to get it out, seeing it on paper, reading it back, internalizing it, processing, making changes. So take that time to really get in tune, or move towards getting in tune, because again, right, it's a process. So it may not be that after you do this homework, it's going to be so clear. There are so many different levels and so many different parts and facets to us that our purpose can be more than one thing, even. So it may take time for you to figure out what that is, right? And so to maybe even go deeper and into more of an existential kind of question is, why are you here on earth? Why were you born? Like, let that marinate. What is that? What roles do you play in life? Who are you? How do you define yourself? And how can you connect your purpose to what that means? And then how do you, like you, Roddia said, put that in action, putting your purpose in action? So what are the steps that you need to take to fulfill this purpose? What are the things that you need to do with purpose to fulfill that purpose? Right? So, Rodia, please take it away.
That's powerful. Let me, like, I have to reiterate that, okay? Because that is so powerful, thinking about, why you are here, understanding what your purpose is what allows us to understand who we are, right? So who we are should be in alignment with what our purpose is, because that shapes our values, that shapes how we understand ourselves, what we want out of life, what connection, what family, what love, what happiness, what healing, all of that is how we define the world around us is embedded in who we are and what our purpose is. So that's so powerful. And I definitely want to echo that we definitely are multifaceted. Like Shola's only purpose is not being an older sister, right? An amazing purpose and one of her many, right? So it's important to understand that you may only think of one right now, but it doesn't mean that actively in this moment or for the rest of your life, that will be the only purpose you serve. That's impossible. We live in a huge world, right? And everyone daily is serving multiple purposes, even though we may not know it all the time, but we are in someone's life in some way, in our own. So we definitely want to empower you to ask yourself who you are. What is my purpose? And challenge yourself to unpack that for yourself. And then, like Shola said, put it in action. I'm definitely going to do this for myself as well. Of course, there are purposes that I know that I hold, but I'm wondering what else will come up as I do this activity. So you may think you know it all, and then you get to writing and you realize, like, oh, snap, like that too. That's a part of who I am too, right? So we definitely want to challenge you to do it. We want to thank you for sitting with us again for another week. We want to thank you if this is your first time tuning in. You already know what I'm going to say. We're going to see you the same time, same place next Wednesday. Is there anything else you want to say, Shella?
That's it. You've been purposeful. We've been purposeful. And let's do it.
Alrighty, y'all. Bye.
All right.